Hey, Deserving listeners, Escaping Twin Flames, documentary on Netflix. Let's watch.
Jeff Ayan has been gifted with the ability to see into the root cause of your ailment and help you heal it for good.
Wow. So obviously that's a problem. Are you suffering from headaches, insomnia, aches and pains, discomfort, or any other ailment? Any other ailment? Are you suffering from headaches, insomnia, or any other ailment? Are you sick of taking expensive pills, seeing scores of specialists, going through actually getting science-based treatment? That's pretty awful. What if there was someone, not something, not a treatment, but somebody, me. What if there was someone who could see, quote unquote, see into the reason that you're having this issue? And what if that person could help you quickly resolve your issue from the root cause and heal your issue for good? Jeff Ayan has been gifted with the ability to see into the root cause of your ailment and help you heal it for good. He can help you resolve any ailment with a specific science yet unknown to the modern medical world. That is, I mean, I've seen a lot of these kinds of pseudoscientific claims, but that really takes the cake. Are you suffering from any ailment possible? I am this one person who has the ability to see the root cause of your ailment and help you heal it for good. I can help you resolve any ailment with a specific science yet unknown to the modern medical world. And then his credentials is that he's a divine channel and a spiritual healer. And then going on, this isn't Eastern medicine. It isn't energy healing or belief-based healing. It's a science of thought uncovered by Jeff himself through deep personal exploration into the core issues of pain. You don't even need to believe it will work for it to work for you. Yeah. So he's responding. He's just doing an old thing that's been going on for centuries, if not millennia, of the snake oil salesman, the charlatan. And he's also in conversation with, the potential customers, the potential tricked individuals, because he knows that a lot of what he's doing is the exact same thing everyone else is doing. And those things have been debunked, the belief-based healing, energy healing, this kind of thing. And so he's saying, it's not that, but it sounds like it's probably that.
Cause of your ailment and help you heal it for good. So it's just about how he can.
You must be willing to honor yourself completely. You must be willing to heal yourself. Yeah, so you can see the pathway to Twin Flames, because in the little snippets we saw of his shtick, it seems like it's like he learned lessons. And L. Ron Hubbard, I believe, and a lot of these cult leaders will have a similar pathway where they will have a lot of cons or a lot of ventures business-wise. They'll learn some lessons and they will fail, and the next time that they enter into another venture, they are learning from their mistakes, and they're always figuring, okay, discard that bit, but keep that bit, because that bit seemed to work, but that bit didn't. And so it seems like, I don't know, maybe that's what's happening here.
Cancer and any other issue for a price. So
click here to connect with Jeff now. So he just kept his name, or returned back to the name Jeff. Sometimes the answer to dis-ease, sickness, or ailment can be a very simple healing. Yeah, it's one thing for someone to be a charlatan, and this is just straight up charlatanism, because there's no possible way that this is accurate, right? And there's also no possible way that he believes this. At the very least, he's embellishing greatly, because he's literally saying anything. And the journalist mentioned cancer, because of course that is another ailment that he says. There's just no. Okay, so in the intro, I wonder. I introduced the question: if Jeff is a cult leader, does he know that he's deceiving people, or has he deceived himself? Like Teal Swan, for example. Is she a cult leader? Is she not? There's cult elements for sure. But the question is, does Teal Swan go to bed at night knowing that she is deceiving her followers? I'm trying to remember all the data that I absorbed, but from my memory, Teal Swan appeared to believe everything that she was saying. Whereas with Jeff, it's, at least the way it's being laid out, there's some evidence, or it has the vibe of someone that, well, what evidence am I absorbing right now? That he has a number of different business ventures, each making a different claim. If he truly believed this at the time, he would not have given up on this business, right? He wouldn't have shifted to the twin flames thing, which I'm guessing is going to happen. Because if he believes that he can personally cure any problem, any ailment, then you're not going to give that up. You're just going to persevere, regardless of whether or not people listen to you or not. You're going to be like, I'm a magical creature on this planet, and I'm not going to just become an accountant or someone that helps people find their soulmate. I mean, what's that compared to being able to? So, I'm just going to take a guess and say that he knew he was deceiving people. Okay, if he knows he's deceiving people, then what is going on with his personality if that's the case?
Of us together and said, what are you doing? Why are you on the other side of the country? Go be with your man. That's your twin flame. I felt like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Like, how did I not see it in front of my face this whole time?
Okay, so Keely, one of the followers, revealed that she had a former partner, and they told her, Jeff and Shalia told her, Keely, to move to another part of the country to be with her former partner. I'm going to take a guess and say that Jeff and Shalia didn't have a lot of data to go off of. But even if they did, how would you possibly know that the other person is compatible, especially in the long term? It's reckless in terms of business sense, because what if Keely goes out there and, things work out for a year and then it ends disastrously? What cult leaders will do is, and some religious leaders, they'll just frame everything as a success. They'll be like, well, you were meant to do that because now that opens you up to your real twin flame. In fact, I knew that the whole time. Today's video is sponsored by Ada. So I got COVID recently. It was probably the sickest I've ever been in my entire life. It was the worst. Well, did you know there are treatments you can take for COVID-19? And that means that there's something you can do if you get COVID, things you can do to avoid getting really sick. And that's where Ada comes in. You take their free questionnaire online. I've taken it. It's confidential. And you find out if you or a loved one may be eligible for treatment. If eligible, you can talk to a clinician via telehealth within 2 hours. And if prescribed, you can pick up your treatment from a local pharmacy. So click the link below to find out if you are eligible and learn more about treatment options.
Because we've been in harmonious union for years, we very much have achieved that miracle of being able to see and confirm someone's twin flames.
All right, well, so Shalia seems to be also, it seems like a dual cult leader situation, which we don't normally see. Anyway, so but there's a possibility that Shalia is still underneath Jeff in terms of the power differential, or the power distribution, or the brainwashing. I don't know, who knows? But at the very least, Shalia is what she said. So when she started that sentence, I thought, oh, I could see where this is going, and maybe it's okay. Because he starts, because Jeff and I have been twin flames, or because we've been in a long-term relationship, I thought she was going to end with, that means that we have more wisdom about relationships and how to find that special person, or something like that. Now, it's still kind of a ridiculous claim, sort of, but not necessarily ridiculous. I have been with my wife for a long time, and I have learned a lot about myself and about relationships and about long-term relationships and about conflict. And, there's just, if you pay attention, then you can learn a lot of stuff. A lot of my approach with people regarding attachments and relationships has to do with my personal experiences, and experience and paying attention to it is a good way to learn. So I thought they were going to say that, but that's not what she said. What she said was, because we've been in a long-term relationship, and I think they've only been together for, 5 years or something by this point. So it's like, oh my God, you're an ancient couple. That she said, because we've been together for a long time, we have a magical ability to identify twin flames, meaning we have a magical ability to find complete compatibility and the future of your two lives by knowing that if you just join our program and our class, that you will stay together for the rest of your life. So is that part of the cult, that when a couple move, if they can get the couple, so if they can make the couple and then get the couple into the cult, then they can force the couple not to break up? And of course, religions will do this too, but not, so comprehensively or specifically in this way, or maybe comprehensively. Anyway, so is that where this is headed? I hope not, because if it's not headed that direction, they could have, because the followers, they're showing a lot of clips of how the followers were really drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will. And one of the things that I always try to remind myself as I'm watching these documentaries is that it looks like, because we know where this is headed, even if you don't know specifically, it's like, oh, this doesn't end well. And so when they're interviewing the past members, it can be tempting to look at them and say that they're weak, or, well, I wouldn't have fallen for that. But there's little hints of ground level what it was like. And they were talking about how it was just very helpful. One person was like, I wasn't really attracted to them because of the twin flame thing. I was more just interested in the self-help in the community, which can be very powerful and can be legitimately helpful to a lot of people. There are cults that can help a lot of people. Scientology, there are people that I have talked with who have benefited from the low-level Scientology. They don't go up the ranks and get involved in all the stuff that you hear about. They just take the classes and they use it for their own gain, and they discover things about themselves, and it is helpful for them. So that needs to be emphasized, not to necessarily let the members off the hook, which I think is what we should be doing, but meaning that we shouldn't be saying, oh, you're a weak person. Not only that, but also so that we understand that we won't detect a cult as it's beginning. We won't see the documentary 10 years in the future. What we will see ground level is helpfulness and warmth and community and love and acceptance. What we won't see is what the leader is wanting to do with us. We won't see their intentions. We won't see behind the scenes. And so it's important for all of us to just be very careful about that. And I guess more commonly in relationships, you can experience someone in the beginning of a relationship and feel very warm with the person. They can pay a lot of attention to you. They can seem very safe. And I'm not saying that we should all be paranoid. It's not common that this happens, but it can happen, especially if you have that history and that susceptibility. Then the key is just take time and to look for signs. Do they isolate you from your friends and family? What is their track record relationship-wise? How do they talk about their previous partners? Do they truly value what you say? Do you feel any pressure to be a certain way? How do they react when you draw a boundary? That's kind of a key, because with love bombing with cult members or in abusive relationships, that will be the differentiator. Because when two people fall in love, if someone falls in love with you, they're going to be very dedicated to you. It's going to look like love bombing. But if you draw a boundary and you say like, I'm not ready for that step yet. I'm not ready to have sex, or I'm not ready to get married, or I'm not ready to get engaged, or I'm not ready to move in with each other, or I'm not ready to have us meet each other's parents, or whatever progression of the relationship, you draw a boundary. Someone that is not abusive, even though they really want to move forward in the relationship, they will consent to that. That's a bad word. They will adjust, because that's not their mission. Their mission isn't control. Their mission is love. So that's the differentiator. Whereas if you draw a boundary like that and they somehow figure a way, whether through straight up abuse or through rejection, like, well, you don't really love me anymore, or subtle ways like, well, we'll talk about it, and maybe, come on, you'll do it. There's a lot of ways in which love bombers will do that. So when it comes to cult organizations or harmful cult-ish organizations, maybe that's another test. Another litmus test is like, what if I draw a boundary? What if, like in the Teal Swan documentary, when one of the members or the people in the class, he was pushing back and saying like, well, I don't know if that really applies to me. For me, as a professor and as a YouTuber, if someone said that to me, I am not threatened by that. And I would actually, as a professor, it was rare that someone would speak out against me in class because there's such a power structure. As a professor, I could ruin a student's life by seeing them in a bad light, by giving them a bad grade, by talking with other professors about how terrible that's. I have so much power, and they these students, they want to become therapists. They're spending a lot of money, they're investing a lot of time, and I hold all the cards, or at least most of the cards. And so students would rarely speak up against me. And I would have to do a lot to actually convey to them that I can be trusted and that I encourage them to be to speak out against me if they want to. And so when someone finally would speak out against me, I would prove to everyone, including that person, that I was super cool with it, even if it kind of stung. And so when that would happen, I was okay. If they said, I think what you're talking about, it might even be something I'm really passionate about, like projective identification, for example, or attachment theory. And they might say, I don't know about that. And I would engage in a conversation with them, and I would say, hey, if it doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't resonate with you. And here are the problems with these theories. There's a lot of critique here. It's hard to demonstrate. It's hard to prove, particularly projective identification. It doesn't lend itself to empirical observation very easily. So absolutely, you can easily discount everything that I'm saying and not be a bad therapist or a bad student, and that is your freedom. I might also say it would help if you have some theory that you adhere to, or not only help, but it's necessary that you have some theory that you adhere to, such that you can have some guidance regarding treatment. You can't just treat clients based on your own intuition. You have to have some scientific basis or some theoretical orientation basis that at least has some consensus around it about what you're supposed to be doing. So, I might say that, but I wouldn't say you have to think what I think. So that's just one of those litmus tests that you can have in dating, in relationships, in friendships, at work. You have a boss that has a different point of view than you. Do they let you have a different point of view? Do they allow you to push back? If they ask you to work on the weekend and they want those TPS reports by Monday, can you say, can't do it this weekend? How do they react? That's always the key.
And Shalia told us that they had this special spiritual power to confirm twin flames. So if you had a twin flame, they were the only ones who could confirm it. I felt like I should trust these people.
Yeah. And I often will say when I review stuff like this that I hope you hear from me when it comes up, that I will say, I am not the only therapist or the only professional in my field who knows the things that I know or talks about the things that I talk about or approaches things the way that I approach things. People will email me or talk to me and they'll say, I wish you were my therapist because I've been to therapy a few times and it wasn't helpful and you just seem like the perfect person for me. And what I will always say is, that's very flattering. I'm sorry that happened to you. I guarantee you there are therapists out there that are not only in my arena, but are much better for you than I ever would have been, because it just is, I'm just so sure of that. And so you just have to keep looking. It might take a while. You might have to drive an extra few miles outside of your town to find that person, but they're out there. So I will never say that I have all the answers. I'm the only one. Teal Swan did this as well. She literally said that she knows more than all professionals within psychology regarding the topic of suicide or something like that. So something about suicide. And she was more effective, I think, in helping people with suicide than literally every therapist, every psychologist, every psychiatrist, every social worker, every counselor. She was more effective than all of them. And only she is more effective. It's not like me and these 1,000 other people who have developed this approach. So it's just me. And so for Jeff and Shalia to say, we are the only ones. We have the answer. No one else does. And we saw Jeff in that previous iteration of his scam, if you will, that he had another business where he claimed he could solve any medical problem. And it wasn't a science or a tradition that other people adhered to. It was only him. He was the only person on the planet that could solve all health problems. And everyone else was stupid and he had all the answers. That is, of course, dubious, problematic, manipulative, and it's just upsetting that people would buy into this, that they wouldn't detect it as a problem. I think there's a number of reasons for that. If we stick to the twin flames universe, there are so many people that are lonely and there's seemingly no way out of it. And the society is so disjointed and there's so much anger and there's so much hatred and so many unsafe places that I think that doesn't help. And then you don't have a lot of opportunity. Like for a lot of these folks, I keep thinking if they came to a therapist like me and, many other therapists that are oriented this way, there could have been a path forward of discovering the self, because, a lot of them are attracted to the self-help aspects of it, the self-compassion and the relationship knowledge and awareness, emotional awareness, connection, being able to express yourself in a vulnerable way. And so I'm thinking, if they, to me, if I had a friend like this, I'd say, find a therapist that specializes in this, at the very least as a jumping off point, because there's so much growth and help that can happen there. And therapy can be a good way to be a stopgap between yourself and choices that might be risky. Like if you're talking to your therapist every week and like, for example, a client comes to me and it's just like, and we're working on relationships and they're like, I found someone, he's the best. And I'd be like, oh my God, that's great. What happened? And then I start hearing hallmarks of the client jumping too quickly into something that could harm them. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I would raise some kind of caution around like, well, remember, you don't know this person very well. He sounds amazing. So I won't discount that at all. But, you have time. We're not all dying tomorrow. So, just remember to check in with yourself and value yourself and, dive in if that's what feels good. But, have moments where you look at it from the outside, look at the relationship from the outside a little bit, look at your feelings from the outside, just have that 1 foot in that camp. I don't know if that's what I'd say, but you know what I mean. And so therapy can help with that. The problem is that we have a system that doesn't necessarily pay for that service, or we have a system that doesn't connect the right therapists to the right clients. We have a system that connects health insurance with employment. What if you lose employment? And that's the problem. That you have all these professionals who can help people, but there's a lack of access, right? And so that opens the door wide open for charismatic people to come in. If we talk about the medical system, there's a similar kind of lack of access. And so if you have an ailment, particularly if it's something chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and you've gone to a lot of specialists and they all have different ideas, or they say it's all in your head or something, that can happen sometimes. Sometimes there are competent clinicians that can actually help people with these ongoing chronic conditions in an emotional and medical way. But it's not uncommon for someone with chronic issues to experience oppression and dismissal and frustration with the medical system. And then you go online and you're desperate, right? It's not the first place you looked, but it's certainly the 10th place because you've already, uncovered a lot of rocks to no avail. And then that opens the door for charlatans and scam artists to exploit people. And we could change that if we had a different system and we had politicians that actually changed the way that we do things and allocated the funds so that people would have access. If we actually had compassion for the human race, we would do that. We are the richest company. That's ironic. We are the richest country that has ever existed, exponentially. We have loads and loads of wealth and money and opportunity and technology and ability. And yet we don't care about ourselves enough to pressure our politicians to...
Because they have...
Because all of these victims of what I'm guessing is going to be demonstrated as a cult could have been served by a system, and they never would have turned to this. That's what I'm saying. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.